karena harga perdana PIK 2 50% di bawah harga market. Alasan yang ketiga, fasilitas, di mana fasilitas yang tersedia di PIK 2 jauh lebih banyak dari real estate manapun juga.
Alenia's Journey Uncover Papua kembali hadir di tanah yang luar biasa ini.
Uncover Papua Road to PON adalah sebuah perjalanan yang mengangkat berbagai hal menarik, positif dan inspiratif dari Papua dalam persiapannya menjadi tuan rumah PON 20 2021.
Papua siap.
Ikuti terus tongfu perjalanan Alenia's Journey Uncover Papua Road to PON Papua.
Orang bisa.
Setiap Sabtu jam setengah 4 sore. Metro iCare. Setiap Minggu jam 10 pagi.
In Lebanon, families of the victims of last year's devastating port explosion marched through Beirut center on Sunday. They're holding pictures of their relatives killed in the blast and demanding justice. The investigative judge leading the probe has summoned senior officials of intentional homicide and negligence and asked parliament and security agencies to lift immunity so he can question those officials. But the political leadership closed ranks, refusing to lift immunity and accused the judge of political bias. Hello, good evening. You're watching World News on Metro Globe Network. I'm Iqbal Himawan, and here are tonight's top stories. And we're going to start in Turkey, where 15 people have died after a passenger bus veered and tumbled off a highway in the western part of the country. 17 passengers survived the crash and are now recovering in the hospital. Officials say the bus was traveling from Zonguldak in the north to Izmir in the west, overturned when it lost control at a bend. An investigation is underway to determine the cause of the crash. So far, investigators have found that the bus entered a bend at a speed of 95 kilometers per hour and left a brake mark of about 40 meters. Teams combed the site to search for the passengers' scattered belongings and used a crane to lift the bus. Dozens of wildfires continue to ravage Greece amid the worst heat wave the country has seen in decades. The most severe fire on the island of Evia has destroyed homes and businesses and sent thousands of people fleeing. The skies above the popular destination have turned orange as the fire burns out of control for a fifth consecutive day. Many on the island's residents and tourists had to be evacuated by boats. And we're moving on to Thailand, where more than 1,000 anti-government protesters in Bangkok clashed with police over the weekend as they protested the government's failure to handle coronavirus outbreaks. Now to Afghanistan, where the Taliban have taken much control of the provincial capital Kunduz. If the city falls, it would be the fourth capital the Taliban have taken in less than a week. Officials say the Taliban. Hundreds of Belarusians in Ukraine protested outside their country's embassy on the eve of the first anniversary of the presidential election, which many say was rigged in favor of authoritarian leader Alexander Lukashenko. Less than 50 days to go now until Germans hit the polls to elect a new chancellor. The election will decide who will succeed current Chancellor Angela Merkel, who is stepping down after 16 years in power. The governing party, Merkel's Christian Democratic Union, or CDU, are temporarily ranked first despite a decline in support in the latest election poll. The bloc formed by the CDU and Bavaria's Christian Social Union enjoy the highest support rate with 27%, followed by the Green Party with 19% and the Social Democrats with 18%. But analysts say the biggest battle in September will be between CDU and the Greens. When it comes to the issues this election, German voters are showing particular interest in public health and climate change, a major concern after devastating floods swept through the country last month. And the Tokyo Olympics have officially wrapped up, ending on Sunday with a spectacular but subdued closing ceremony. After a late surge, the U.S. topped both the gold medal count and overall medal count, with China and host country Japan coming in a close second and third. Tokyo now passes the Olympic baton to Paris, who will host the Games in 2024.
Ended almost exactly as it began. The few Olympic officials and athletes left watched as the cauldron closed and the Olympic flame was extinguished. Meanwhile, outside the stadium, police scuffled with protesters still angry at the government's decision to hold the Games in the middle of the pandemic. In the last 2 weeks, Tokyo has seen COVID-19 cases soar to daily record highs. Despite the ongoing backlash, some Tokyo residents say they feel uplifted as the Games draw to a close.
開催は反対はしてたんですけども、やっぱり始まってみたら、選手からの感動はちょっともらえたかなと。
Truly an Olympics like no other, Tokyo 2020 sparked serious conversations about mental health after U.S. star gymnast Simone Biles withdrew from a number of events due to mental health reasons. But the U.S. is triumphant, coming out of these Summer Games on top, bringing home 39 gold medals and more than 100 total, ahead of China and host country Japan. As the curtain closes on Tokyo 2020, the baton now passes to Paris. Thousands of people gathered near the Eiffel Tower to welcome the handover of the Olympic flag. A flyover by jets released blue, white, and red smoke into the Paris sky. And at the top of the Eiffel Tower, President 2024, when it will mark 100 years since the city last hosted the event.
And coming up on World News, one of London's most famous nightlife venues was turned into a pop-up vaccination center. Stay with us.
Sekarang tua itu tak ditentukan umur, tapi dari usia otot. Yuk ikuti Ensure Stand for Strength untuk tahu usia otot Anda. Mulai! Minum Ensure 2 kali sehari. Nutrisi seimbang dengan triple protein dan tinggi kalsium untuk bantu jaga kekuatan otot dan tulang yang menurun seiring usia dan jaga daya tahan tubuh agar tetap aktif sepanjang hari. Kunjungi ensure.co.id dan cek usia otot Anda sekarang.
Mau kuliah dengan beasiswa S1 atau S2? Bebas uang pangkal semester sampai lulus? Bantuan biaya hidup? Program magang? Penyaluran dunia kerja? Online Scholarship Competition 2021 di akhir Agustus 2021 dipersembahkan oleh, diselenggarakan oleh, didukung oleh.
Kesehatan itu adalah hal penting yang harus kita jaga loh.
Saat ini, teknologi pun ikut mendukung kesehatan.
Supaya semakin sehat dan bugar.
Bersama para pakar kesehatan, kami mengulas kesehatan yang berbalut teknologi.
Simak Go Healthy
di Metro
TV.
Kami memiliki solusi supaya Anda bisa tetap menghasilkan income bahkan pada saat kondisi pandemi seperti sekarang di rumah saja, yakni melalui trading forex bersama robot Sparta. Jadi dana pun itu 100% ada di tangan Anda.
Info Plus, solusi menghasilkan income dari rumah di tengah pandemi. Selasa 10 Agustus, jam 8:30 pagi. Didukung oleh Iluni UI bersama Media Group, Asosiasi Rumah Sakit Vertikal Indonesia, dan Bakti Kominfo menggelar sentra vaksinasi Sinergi Sehat mulai 22 Juli hingga 15 September 2021 di The Media Hotel and Towers, Jakarta. Daftarkan diri Anda melalui Narahubung Ayo vaksinasi COVID-19 untuk lindungi diri dan orang lain.
You're back on World News. The U.S. intelligence community is expected to send a report to President Joe Biden later this month, examining the two leading theories on the origins of COVID-19. One claims the virus was accidentally released from a lab, the other that it emerged from human contact with an infected animal.
Nearly 18 months into the COVID-19 global pandemic, questions remain over the origins of the virus. The U.S. intelligence community has said it does not know exactly where, when, or how the virus was first transmitted. And just this past June, the top U.S. intelligence official warned intelligence agencies may never find a so-called smoking gun. But the issue has become a potent political topic in Congress. Most Democrats are waiting on the intelligence findings, but Republicans this month released a report advocating another theory on COVID's origins, one already rejected by U.S. intelligence officials, claiming there is paper trail that shows China's Wuhan Institute of Virology was involved with dangerous research, manipulating the virus's genetic code.
We said it was a possibility. Now I believe there's a preponderance of evidence that it was manufactured in the lab and it leaked, most likely accidentally.
Republican Representative Michael McCall told VOA's Mandarin service the Chinese government is withholding important data on possible early infections in September 2019.
Well, I think the WHO was very ineffective in warning the world about a global pandemic. They've been very ineffective in investigating this. At the end of the day, the answer from top scientists are sitting in the archives of the Wuhan lab itself that the PRC will not release publicly.
Yet, while there is frustration with the way China has answered questions about the outbreak, the leading theory among many scientists is that the virus did in fact originate from a natural source. Virologist Dr. Ben Newman, who has studied coronaviruses for 25 years.
It looks a lot like all the other bat viruses that are out there, and there aren't any specific features you could find on this virus that you can't find on several more coronaviruses.
President Joe Biden in May gave the U.S. intelligence community 90 days to provide an in-depth assessment of the coronavirus origins. Jesus Semelny, VOA News, Washington.
And now China is grappling with the largest outbreak of COVID-19 since the start of the pandemic. Many cities have been placed under lockdown, including the eastern city of Yangzhou, where more than 300 cases have been reported. Yangzhou has 72 areas deemed to have high or medium risk, where all residents are subjected to quarantine at home. Residents can only get their groceries by placing an order via a mobile app. More than 30,000 volunteers will deliver the orders to doorsteps the next day. Authorities are also working to curb the spread of the virus by conducting mass testing. Thousands of health workers are launching a fifth round of testing after completing the fourth over the weekend. The city has also suspended all inbound and outbound train services. One of London's most famous nightlife venues transformed into a pop-up vaccination center over the weekend as the UK ramped up its COVID-19 vaccination campaign. The country's health service had prepared about 1,200 jabs at the makeshift site at Heaven nightclub, but the site saw more nurses than patients during the event. Despite the low turnout, many people were happy to get their first or second vaccine dose while listening to pop singers like Beyoncé and Ariana Grande. The owner of the club, Jeremy Joseph, came up with the idea for the special vaccination event. He says he had been trying to get authorities to agree to it for months and says he was happy when they finally agreed to use the venue to encourage more young people to get the COVID jabs. Coming up on World News is the top entertainment news, where drummer Charlie Watts is likely to miss Rolling Stones tour.
Pencapaian media Indonesia sepanjang tahun 2020-2021. Asian Media Awards 2020. Bronze winner. Penghargaan dari Badan Usaha Kemendikbud 2020. Penghargaan dari PT KAI 2020. Indonesia Print Media Awards 2020 and 2021. Penghargaan dari BNPB 2021. Penghargaan dari Badan Bahasa 2021. Indonesia Print Media Awards 2021. Gold winner.
Media Indonesia, a part of Media Group News.
Penting untuk Anda ketahui, kolesterol yang tak terkendali memicu berbagai masalah kesehatan yang lebih serius.
Saya Ade Rustama, saya sering merasa punggung saya kaku. Ternyata kolesterol saya tinggi. Saya merubah pola hidup saya menggunakan teknologi laser untuk membantu meningkatkan kualitas kesehatan saya.
Simak pembahasan lengkapnya di Go Healthy. Kolesterol terkendali, serangan jantung terhindari. Selasa 10 Agustus, jam 6:30 pagi.
Rukan Asia Afrika PIK 2 memiliki beberapa keunggulan sebagai berikut. Yang pertama, dari segi lokasi. Berada di jalan utama PIK 2, yaitu Jalan Asia Afrika yang merupakan boulevard selebar 50 meter. Hanya sekitar 3,5 menit menuju interchange, 18 menit menuju Bandara Internasional Soekarno-Hatta, 7 menit menuju Center Point, Pantai Pasir Putih, dan CBD PIK 2. Yang kedua, merupakan konsep desain satu-satunya di Jakarta yang mengusung konsep multibisnis dengan ukuran besar, 4,5 kali 15 meter, 4 lantai, memiliki high ceiling setinggi 5,5 meter untuk lantai dasar dan 4,5 meter untuk lantai di atasnya, serta dilengkapi pedestrian walk sebesar 3 meter di depan unit. Keunggulan yang ketiga yaitu promo spesial DP 15% bisa dicicil 24 kali atau 2 tahun sebesar Rp32 juta per bulan. Segera hubungi PIK 2 di 021 588 8000.
Gangguan prostat? Minum Prostakur. Prostakur melancarkan kencing karena gangguan prostat.
You're back on World News, and in our top entertainment news tonight, Leonard Skinner guitarist Ricky Medlock's positive COVID test cancels shows. Kool and the Gang co-founder Dennis Thomas dies at age 70, and drummer Charlie Watts is likely to miss Rolling Stones tour.
All right, people, we're going to talk all about music tonight. Leonard Skinner has pulled out of the Pro Football Hall of Fame concert after guitarist Ricky Medlock tested positive for COVID-19. The country rock band was set to co-headline the concert Monday night with Brad Paisley, but Medlock's positive test forced the group's withdrawal. Jimmy Allen, who was the opening act, has extended his set list to open the show. He performs a duet with Paisley on the current hit Freedom Was a Highway. Love that song. The band also suspended shows in Jackson, Mississippi, Atlanta, and Cullman, Alabama, with the August 13th show in Atlanta rescheduled for October 23rd. That's a long time away. And now we're going to talk about Dennis D.T. Thomas, a founding member of the long-running soul-funk band Kool and the Gang, known for such hits as Celebration and Get Down on It, has died. He was 70. He died peacefully in his sleep over the weekend in New Jersey, where he was a resident of Montclair. Thomas was the alto sax player, flutist, and percussionist. He served as master of ceremonies at the band's shows. His last appearance with the group was July 4th at the Hollywood Bowl in Los Angeles. Born February 9, 1951 in Orlando, Florida, Thomas was known for his hip clothes and hats. He was also the group's wardrobe stylist. Okay, a little bit of history here. In 1964, 17 friends created the group's unique blend of jazz, soul, and funk, at first calling themselves the Jazziacs. They went through several iterations before settling on Kool and the Gang in 1969. The band has earned 2 Grammy Awards and 7 American Music Awards. They were honored in 2014 with the Soul Train Lifetime Achievement Award. Their music is heavily sampled and featured on film soundtracks, including those for Rocky, Saturday Night Fever, and Pulp Fiction. And last but not least, back to rock. Rolling Stones drummer Charlie Watts will likely miss the band's upcoming U.S. tour to allow him to recover from an unspecified medical procedure. A spokesperson for the musician said the procedure was completely successful, but that Watts needs time to recuperate. The Stones are set to resume their No Filter tour with a stadium show on September 26 in St. Louis. Watts, who is 80, said in a statement he did not want his recovery to further delay the tour, which is set to visit several U.S. cities including Dallas, Atlanta, Los Angeles, and Las Vegas. Watts successfully underwent treatment for throat cancer in 2004. He is a very heavy smoker. He will be replaced by understudy Steve Jordan, who has played with Keith Richards for years.
Scientists are building new self-healing materials to protect next-generation spacecraft from the harsh elements. Plus, a Russian module misfires in space, and MTV turns 40. VOA's Arash Arabasadi has the week in space, and that's wrapping up our show tonight. I'm Iqbal Himawan. Thank you for watching World News. Stay healthy and always take care.
Our atmosphere, as seen from a SpaceX cargo capsule, sure looks peaceful. But as regular watchers of this segment know, Earth's orbit is littered with hazardous space junk just begging to pierce satellites and components of the International Space Station. So scientists in England started work on new polymers to extend the lifespan of hardware sent to space. Stuart Donovan Holmes is head of defense and space at the National Composite Center in Bristol. He tells AP the pilot program tests materials to endure the hardships of Earth's orbit.
You've got UV radiation hitting it, you've got all sorts of dust and particles, and when they react to the surface of the composite, they can have unexpected consequences, which is something you really don't want in that kind of environment. And so part of doing this program is to test this combination of resin and fiber to see what can work in that environment and give us the kind of durability and performance that we're looking for.
To do this, the National Composite Center joined forces with researchers at the University of Bristol, where Professor Ian Hamerton explains the science to the Associated Press.
What we have is a polymer that essentially self-heals. So when we expose it in the low Earth orbit environment, the material reacts with the oxygen, reacts with these radicals, and essentially produces a shell over its surface. So it becomes almost like a protective carapace over the surface of the polymer. So it protects what's underneath.
Hamerton says some materials currently in use are metal alloys dating back to the Cold War. He says the new, lighter and stronger composites could build solar panels or even structural systems. Scientists will get a chance for real space testing when they launch their composites from Earth next spring. In other news, don't worry. That's what cosmonaut Oleg Novitsky told his Twitter followers this week after Russia's science module misfired and caused the ISS to reportedly pitch 45 degrees. It happened just a few hours after docking, and as more information came in, NASA tweeted that the change was more like 540 degrees. The space agency also confirmed the station is in good shape and operating normally. Arash Arabasadi, VOA News.
Metro TV.
Banyak orang belum memeriksakan kondisi kesehatannya secara rutin.
Juga banyak orang yang kemudian mengkhawatirkan masalah biaya sehingga medical check-up pun urung dilakukan.
Dr. Laser bekerja sama dengan Rumah Sakit Mitra Keluarga memberikan layanan medical check-up kepada Anda, pemirsa Metro TV.
Manfaatkan kesempatan medical check-up screening jantung dan juga screening